So, India's union budget for 2026-27 is here, and it's so much more than just a document full of numbers. It's really the country's economic roadmap for the year ahead. So, let's dive right in and break down the big vision, the key investments, and what it all actually means for you.
And really, to get a feel for the thinking behind this budget, you just have to look at this powerful quote from Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. It sets a really clear tone, right? The message is we're focusing on decisive action and deep structural reforms, not just short-term populist moves.
Okay, so let's zoom out and start with the big picture. The entire budget is built around this vision of Viksit Bharat, which means a developed India. This isn't just about hitting economic targets, it's about setting a whole new strategic direction for the nation's future. And this whole approach is built around what the government is calling three core kartavyas, or duties. Think of it like a three-pronged strategy. First, you've got to power the economy. Second, you need to empower the people. And third, you have to make sure that development is inclusive for everyone. This framework is pretty much the foundation for everything else we're going to talk about. All right, let's talk numbers. One of the most important ones in any budget is the fiscal deficit. It's basically the gap between how much the government earns and how much it spends. The target for 2026-27 is 4.3% of GDP. Now, what this number signals is a real commitment to being careful with the country's finances, which is absolutely crucial for keeping the economy stable and investors confident. And you can see that path of fiscal prudence in action right here. When you compare a country's debt to its total economic output, its GDP, you want to see this ratio going down. It means the economy is growing faster than the debt, which is exactly what you want. It frees up money for important projects instead of just paying off interest. Okay, so let's dig into that first kartavya in action, speeding up economic growth. This budget puts a heavy focus on two massive drivers, manufacturing and infrastructure. So instead of trying to do everything at once, the budget gets really targeted, focusing on 7 specific, high-potential sectors. We're talking about really future-focused industries like biopharma and semiconductors, but also strengthening bedrock areas like textiles. It's a strategic bet on building up our own capacity and depending less on imports for critical goods. Wow, okay, this chart right here, it tells a huge story. CapEx, or capital expenditure, is the money the government spends on long-term assets. Think roads, ports, railways, and just look at that jump from 2 lakh crore to a proposed 12.2 lakh crore. This isn't just spending money, it's a massive investment in the country's future productivity. And to make a number that big feel a little more real, here's a perfect example. The budget is planning for 7 new high-speed rail corridors. The idea is that these will act as growth connectors, essentially using infrastructure as a strategic tool to link up major economic hubs and spark development all along the way. All right, moving on to that second kartavya. This is where the focus really shifts from the big picture economy to the people. This whole section is about building up human capital and creating pathways for citizens to achieve their dreams. So the budget itself kind of poses this fundamental question, right? And the answer it gives lies in a whole series of targeted initiatives. The goal is to create a skilled, healthy, and capable population that's ready for the jobs of tomorrow. So here's how they're tackling that. You've got a new committee designed to bridge that gap between what you learn in school and what you need for a job. In healthcare, there's a huge push to add 100,000 allied professionals and even position India as a global medical hub. Meanwhile, things like the Khelo India mission and new university townships aim to create brand new career paths in sports and research. What this all points to is a really fundamental shift in philosophy, and it's something market analysts have picked up on. In the past, a lot of budgets felt reactive, like they were just managing the latest crisis. This one feels proactive. It's trying to build long-term, sustainable growth to make the economy tougher against any future shocks. Okay, now for the part I'm sure you've been waiting for, the bit that affects your wallet. Let's talk about taxes. This is where all those big policies actually hit home for everyday citizens. So the headline here is pretty big. A brand new, simplified income tax act is coming. The whole goal is to make the entire process of filing taxes way easier to understand and to comply with, redesigning forms so ordinary folks can actually navigate them without a headache. And check this out. This is some direct relief for a lot of people. The government is streamlining what's called tax collected at source, or TCS. So for things like overseas tour packages or sending money abroad for education or medical bills, the rate is dropping to a simple, flat 2%. That's a really tangible benefit for many families.
And it's not just the big new act. There are also several smaller procedural tweaks to make life easier. For instance, you'll have more time to revise your returns, and the deadlines for filing will be staggered depending on who you are. It's all about making the process less of a mad dash.
Okay, so we've got all these pieces on the board. What does it all mean for the road ahead? In this final section, let's look at the bigger picture and the long-term implications of this budget. One really crucial decision, which affects the whole country's financial plumbing, is this. The government has accepted the 16th Finance Commission's report. By agreeing to keep sharing 41% of the central tax money with the states, they're reinforcing a financial partnership between the center and the states, making sure they have the funds they need for local development. And you know, this quote from market analysts really sums up the whole vibe of this budget. The experts are seeing this not as some radical, disruptive change, but as a commitment to steady continuity. And that kind of stability is often exactly what long-term investors are looking for. So, we end on this question. This budget clearly lays out a vision, one based on fiscal discipline, strategic investments, and building capacity for the long haul. The real question is this steady, consistent approach the blueprint that will define India's economic journey towards becoming a developed nation? Well, that's what we'll all be watching as these policies begin to roll out.